Hey guys, it's Deena, your mindset evolutionary here at flynubianqueen.com, the network for melanated women just like you and me. Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm so excited to have everyone here to discuss this very important topic. If you haven't already, as you guys are coming in, please hit the thumbs up, the like, the subscribe, the share button. This is going to be a very deep and interesting topic. I want us to get into this. I want this to be very interactive. And so I'm hoping that everyone will feel comfortable to discuss what's going on here with the Russell Simmons accusations of sexual assault and rape. So I titled it Guilty with a question mark, Russell Simmons accusers speak. And again, for those of you who are just joining us and as we're waiting for more people to come into the building, this is Deena Jacobs, your mindset evolutionary, guiding Black women to freedom from negative conditioning. You can catch me on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, where I guide Black women to freedom from negative conditioning by talking about different subjects that relate to mental wealth and spiritual well-being. So I would love for you to come and join me there on Sunday nights. And of course, I pop in and out from time to time here on the Fly Nubian Queen platform here on Facebook, and then later get rebroadcast on the YouTube channel. So wherever you are joining us right now, as you're coming in, a question that I'd like for you to consider tonight as we're getting into this discussion: when Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? So that's something I want us to think about as we're going over some of these, the facts. I did a little bit of research. And again, I did some research over the past like 24 hours, and by no means is this research that I've done comprehensive. And by no means am I like a lawyer or a prosecutor. I am just a member of the community who has been following this story off and on, and wanted to have like a really frank discussion with the women in the community. And I'm sure there'll be some men here who will join us as well. Again, if you're just getting here, like, subscribe, share. This is going to be a very powerful and exciting conversation in a lot of ways. I'm sure people have a lot of passion around this subject matter. So one of the questions I'm presenting to you in the audience, just let me know you guys are here. One of the things that I am presenting to you in presenting the question to you, sorry I got distracted by a phone call that was coming in, is when Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? And so I want you to let me know what you think right now. Can I get yes? Can I get no? Can you say something? I just want to know that people are here, they're engaged, and they're, uh-oh, it looks like the video is freezing. Okay, the connection is back. All right, great. So I see a couple comments in here. Elevation Resurrect Allah says, peace family, peace to you too. Deshaun Farad says, peace to you as well. So let's get into this. So just a day ago, Russell Simmons has been, as you guys know, I want to say maybe about 2 years ago, some accusations started surfacing around Russell Simmons allegedly sexually assaulting and raping some different women that he was involved with on different levels. And excuse me, as a result of some women starting to come forward on this, we had a documentary in the entertainment industry that started to get put together by I don't know exactly who, but Oprah ended up getting her name attached to it as an executive producer. And recently we find out that Oprah has since dropped away from it. She's no longer associated as an executive producer of this untitled Sundance film. It's going to be premiering at Sundance coming up shortly. And she had some statements around that. So we're going to get into all of that. But on this CBS morning show yesterday, Gayle King introduced Michelle Miller on the CBS morning show, who interviewed three of the accusers. One of them's name is Drew Dixon. She's a former employee and center. She's the center of the documentary from what I've been researching. She said that Russell Simmons, and I just want to warn people if their kids are around or anything like that, some of this is very graphic. So if you have been a victim of sexual assault, I urge you to get treatment, seek help that you need to get over it, to deal with the trauma of it, and please go to the authorities as soon as possible. I think it's so important that we encourage women and support women around reporting these things as soon as possible, because unlike murder, or if you're not beaten in a situation like that, it can be very, very hard to prove later on down the line. And I know that for a lot of women, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, but I urge you to just, if you can, find someone in your family or your friend circle or an authority figure that you can go to and get support to go and report it. Or even if you have to go by yourself, sis, as soon as you possibly can, go to the authorities, get the rape kit done, and then go seek the help that you need. It's important that everyone know that that you have to take care of yourself. I don't think that's stressed enough when these type of things are coming out. A lot of women, for a wide variety of reasons, will be assaulted and they will never report it. And I think that unfortunately that is hurting some of the credibility of some of these accusations. I mean, it's just becomes too difficult to prove. However, I do want to let the ladies out here that are speaking up, whether it be about a public figure or someone in your private and personal life, I want to commend you right now and send a lot of love and support out to the women who are standing up against their abusers, their aggressors, their assaulters, and calling them out, because that is the only way we can start to eliminate this type of behavior. It's the only way that we can start to bring these men to justice, and it's the only way that we can stop these predators dead in their tracks from continuing to assault woman after woman after woman. So after saying that, I want to get a little bit more into this story. So Oprah was the EP of the doc on Russell Simmons' accusers, set to premiere at Sundance Film Festival. She left due to, quote, creative differences, and I feel like in Hollywood speaks, that means that they basically didn't, somebody didn't agree with somebody on some level, and probably because of the PR and some of the facts that may be a little bit murky, and I'm gonna guess maybe because of some of the fallout from the Michael Jackson documentary, which wasn't very well put together, researched, and it had a lot of holes in it. I think it was called Leaving Neverland. There was a lot of backlash from his fans because Oprah jumped on board with something that may or may not be true, but the fact of the matter is the documentary had a lot of holes in the timeline and was not very well put together. And so I think she doesn't want to have that type of fallout again. And this is the statement that she made that came from CBS this morning. Quote, "I want it to be known that I unequivocally believe and support the women," end quote. And then she says there is more work, quote, "to be done to illuminate the full scope of what they endured," quote, end quote. So to me, that alludes to what I was saying about the Michael Jackson Leaving Neverland documentary. My assessment of that, and again, this is just my assessment, is that because there was so much backlash about how Leaving Neverland was put together, and then it came out later that some of the timelines didn't match and some of the stories just didn't make sense of what the guys were saying, and Michael Jackson being dead, etc. I think that this time around Oprah wants to be extra careful, because there were a lot of people, there was a lot of backlash, and a lot of people were wanting to boycott and not support Oprah and her different brands after that. A lot of the Michael Jackson fans were very angry. So let's get deeper into this. So Michelle Miller was the interviewer, not Gayle King, just to be clear, but Gayle King did introduce the story. She did introduce the story, and she did give the like a brief overview of Oprah's involvement in it. So she was, doing PR, running interference for her BFF. So the number one, the first woman is Drew Dixon, the former employee, center of the documentary. She said that, again, this is going to be graphic, so please be prepared. He appeared naked, talking about Russell Simmons, with a condom on. And she was an employee of his, so she said that she was going up to get something from him, like run an errand or something she was supposed to be doing. And she came up to the apartment. She thought she was going to be there for like 5 minutes to grab whatever it was and keep it moving or drop something off. And she said he appeared in the apartment naked with a condom. He forced her to the bed. She said no several times. She was crying. She was saying she didn't want this. So she was making it very clear that it was not something she was interested in. And she said, you know, she didn't know what to do after. She felt she had helped him cover up his behavior for 22 years and was proud of his success as a black man in the music industry because she had a working relationship with him. Yet she was very ashamed of what he did and felt like she couldn't speak out because of the pressures around her career and how she would be ruined if she would have tried to come forward. There was another lady, Salai Abrams. She said she was casually dating Russell off and on. It ended at a certain point. They were still cool. And then there was a moment where, or a time period where she was drunk, and she said that he had sex with her and it was not consensual because she was not in a state of mind where she could consent. So I'm not exactly sure if she was passed out, or, you know, when some people are so drunk that they can barely move. I don't know what, she didn't elaborate on what exact state she was in when this happened. But she said when she, you know, spoke to him about it the next day, he was denying that it was not consensual, and she tried to commit suicide, as well as when she told other people that she wanted to report it, they told her to stay quiet and that it would ruin her if she reported it, and it would ruin her career. The third woman that was on there was Alexia Norton-Jones, and she was an acquaintance of Russell. She said she knew him from different circles, and she said they went on their first and only date. And during that first date, he attacked her. These are her words. She said she would have been intimate with him on some level, with her, you know, consensually maybe kissing him or making out with him. She said she liked him at the time, and she was, you know, interested in dating him. And she didn't understand why he forced her in that way. She said he literally pushed her against a wall and started to, you know, engage in sex acts with her. And she was totally taken by surprise, was not expecting it to go that way. She thought it was, you know, going to be more consensual, I guess, if she was interested as the night went on. And then those three ladies were on the documentary. And then I did a little more digging because it came to light that there are 16 accusers. And so I was like, well, you know what? 16 accusers. Well, who else? You know, who else besides these three? I would say brave women, because whether they're telling the truth or not, because I know some people believe that they're lying. It takes a lot to come out and say somebody raped you. I mean, as a woman, that's not something you really want to say publicly. I mean, because automatically people are just looking at you and thinking damaged goods. You know what I'm saying? There's a huge stigma with it. People start to just kind of, I don't know, it's weird. It's almost like people kind of don't want to associate with you as much when they hear that you or, someone has been raped, and you do kind of start to look at that person as a victim. And it's really unfortunate that it is kind of that way in our society, but I don't think it's an easy thing to do, especially years later. But I understand that it can be very freeing for people who actually, are telling the truth, to be able to state it publicly and name their accuser. That can be a weight that is lifted off of them, because it's like a secret shame that they're carrying, and it can affect every area of their life, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me, Deena Jacobs, your Mindset Evolutionary, here at FlyNubianQueen.com, the network for melanated women just like you and me. you can join me typically on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. right here on flynubianqueen.com, or 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday nights, where I guide Black women to freedom from negative conditioning. So welcome, my brilliantly beautiful gifted beings. If you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up, the like, the subscribe, the share button. And if you haven't gotten into your New Year's resolutions yet, you should definitely resolve to get your money right by going to flynubianmoney.com. And if you have a business idea, please go to flynubianbusiness.com and learn how to get your business going in 2020. It is that time. So again, I want to ask you, and I see a couple people did answer, but I'd love to see more comments. When Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? So I do have one gentleman, Cliff Stewart, says, yes, I agree with you. And I think he's talking about that question. So he's saying, yes, he agrees with the question. And Manira Bomani says, peace. Hey, Manira. But I want to hear from you, people out there. I mean, it's so important for us to have, I want this to be an interactive conversation. I was trying to bring in some other women to speak about this, but I think it's so touchy and so triggering for so many of us women that it was kind of difficult, you know, due to scheduling. But I also think it's very difficult for women to speak about this publicly. Just looking back at the R. Kelly situation that happened, you know, getting into the question, when Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? Let's look at this in relation to the R. Kelly situation. Now, I know we spoke about this on the Fly Nubian Queen platform, and there were some other queens with me who admitted, I admitted as well, that we had known about R. Kelly's behavior or had heard rumors about R. Kelly's behavior since the 90s. We had been hearing this off and on. We all knew, I think the whole, you know, the general public knew that he had married Aaliyah when she was underage, and something about that wasn't right. Then there was lots of rumors about him coming into different cities when he was touring, making stops off at high schools, having some charity event that he was doing, and kind of like, in the meanwhile, having his people, you know, pick out young girls that he was going to give gifts to, take shopping, and then later on engage in illegal sexual activity and predatory behaviors. And then there was the videotapes that emerged, right? And this is way before these documentaries. And these were circulating within the Black community. And a lot of us knew about this, yet we did not speak up. We did not hold him accountable. And yes, you know, R. Kelly is very talented. He made some good music that a lot of us really connect and vibe with. But does that excuse his behavior? And at that point, I feel that we excused, as a community, a lot of us excused his behavior because we enjoyed his music. And then now we look 25 almost, I guess, let me see, 30 years later, and we see that the fallout is incredible. There's like a long list of girls that have been assaulted, and let's just be real here. The ones on the documentary is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the ones whose families and who the women who were actually willing to come forward and be forever infamously associated with R. Kelly in this way. That's not something most people would want to do. So there's you got to know that there's women out here and young girls out here who have probably been assaulted or engaged with R. Kelly that are underage that just don't feel comfortable coming forward. And this is something that, you know, we need to, I think we should look at as a community and discuss openly. How do we enable our predators in our community? And I understand that, yes, there's a white supremacy element to all of this, right? When we see it in the media. But I think there's a certain amount of shame that we're having. Let me think about how I want to say this, because I want to say it the right way. I'm not here to blame people. I'm not here to say that people aren't entitled to their opinions and their assessment of the situation, because everyone is entitled to look at the facts, to look at the evidence, and make up their own mind. But what I'm saying here is that, are we sometimes a little too quick to blame white supremacy for trying to take down Black men, when, yes, that is present. Absolutely, that is present. And I'm acknowledging that. But the flip side of that is, are we using that as an excuse not to hold our predators accountable? Okay, and predators are not always men, so let's just put that out there, right? But are we using that in particular as an excuse to not hold some of our men accountable who are engaging in predatory behavior just because we are shielding them from the threat of white supremacy, right? Because we're like, oh my God, we don't want them to go to jail. We don't want them to get lynched. We don't want them to be, because we understand that the consequences for a black man who's a predator, a rapist, a pedophile is going to be 10, 20 times more than that of some other race of man or a white man, right? So that's something that we understand happens in our society, just in general. It doesn't even have to be a sex crime. It could be something as simple as, getting caught smoking weed back in the day, or having, a rock, a crack rock on you, or one being planted on you, right? Or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or driving while black. We know that all these things exist, right? And so understanding that and acknowledging that those things exist, how do we as a community still hold the men in our community who are practicing, predatory behaviors? How do we hold them accountable? And I don't know. I don't have the answer to this. This is a discussion that I want to have and I want to put out there for us to start thinking about. When Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? Are we turning a deaf ear to these women and saying that they're just a tool of white feminism? Is that fair to these Black women and the girls who are speaking up? Is this a form of victim shaming? And does this then feed into the narrative, the racist narrative of Black women being the most disrespected and dejected and underappreciated women? Does this then feed into that even more? Are we then becoming, abusing them again and neglecting them again and disrespecting Black women again by not giving their accusations the proper room to breathe and be heard and be considered under the circumstances? Now, this is not to say we just take their word and run with it, but are we creating a safe space for our women to come forward and our girls to come forward and let us know him, he did something to me, and listening to them? Are we creating a space where they feel comfortable to speak up in a time of confusion and hurt and just, it can make you go crazy. It can make a person, a woman, a child go crazy to have someone violate them like that. And I want to get a little bit deeper into the psychology of a rape victim so that people can start to understand how it affects it, because people are like, oh, why they coming forward? It's 10 years later, it's 20 years later, it's 30 years later. What they supposed to do about that? Psychologically, it is known that sexual assault, rape, is something that can be with you for a lifetime. It can be one of the most difficult forms of assault. Like someone getting mugged can get over that quicker than someone who got raped. And that is a fact that's known. It's not coming from me. I'm going to read some articles here. But before I go into that article, I want to give a little bit of space and air to Jenny Lamet, who's one of the accusers. She's Lena Horne's granddaughter and a successful screenwriter here in Hollywood. She wrote The Mummy and another indie hit, I think it was called Rachel Getting Married. She was not featured on the CBS Morning, but released a statement sometime a while back. And again, I did post a lot of these links into the the information section here. So if you want to go and check the sources that I'm reading, please, by all means, do your own research. That's what this is about. This is about giving space and giving air, and not just quickly jumping to the conclusion that this is all the hand of white supremacy, because I don't think that is, personally, I don't think that is fair to Black women and our community as a whole, Black girls, and even little boys who are going through some of this. I don't think it's fair to not give this some space. I think that, you know, we're doing a disservice to, I mean, I'm a Black woman. I know a lot of you out there are Black women. If something like this happened to you, you would want to be given the space. And I'm going to share some personal stories, as well as some stories of friends that I won't be naming, but I'm hoping to God that she is okay with me sharing a little bit of her story. I'm not going to give out like a bunch of details, but you know, as you guys know, I work out here in Hollywood, and I've had, you know, some situations happen. I was able to get out of them to where I wasn't assaulted. But one of the things I want you to understand with sharing these stories that I'm going to share with you shortly is that a sense of entitlement comes with celebrity and men in power. And I want you to understand that that sense of entitlement is something that can become violent. And when I'm saying violent, I'm not just talking about someone punching you or choking you. I'm talking about sexually violent, aggressive. So I'm going to get into that in just a second. But before I do, I would like to say thank you so much for joining me, Deena Jacobs, your Mindset Evolutionary, here at FlyNubianQueen.com, the network for melanated women just like you and me. Hello, my brilliantly beautiful, gifted beings. If you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up, the like, the subscribe, and the share button. We are here discussing Russell Simmons' accusers. Is he guilty? And the question I threw out to you, and I'm still waiting to see some more comments in the comment section. Please don't be shy. When Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? I want to hear from you. I'm talking, I'm giving my opinion, but it's important that this is a two-way, three-way, four-way, five-way community conversation. This is something we should be discussing. We've seen it with the R. Kelly. We've seen it with the Michael Jackson. We've seen it with Russell Simmons. We've seen it with Bill Cosby. I think, you know, it's so difficult because we do have this overarching, you know, feminist agenda that's out there. I do believe that there's a huge feminist agenda out there that is causing us to be very disconnected from our men. However, there are instances where they get it right. And I think that with some of this airing out in Hollywood and the entertainment industry of the predators, whether they be white or Black or male or female or whatever the case may be, some of this, you know, airing out, it's time. It's time that this happens. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves as a community, and we need to really look at this and not victim shame. And I think I also believe that if we're going to say that, you know, Black women are being, you know, disrespected and not protected, and, you know, all of these really like low vibrational words that I don't receive. I personally do not feel like I am the most disrespected and all these things, but I also try to keep my energy levels vibrating very high so that I feel good about who I am and really own my, you know, my power and my gifts and my beauty and my femininity as a Black woman. I work on myself. I have a lot of self-care in place for that. There are other women who are struggling with shameful secrets of being abused. And when they come forward, do we create the space for them to be able to point out their accuser if it is a member of our community, if it is a Black man? Now, I'm not by any means saying that all Black men are abusers or predators or anything of that nature. So please, you know, listen, really listen with an open mind and an open heart right now, and an open spirit, because there are women out here who are suffering and struggling. And I know personally women who are dealing with whether or not they should come forward right now because of someone in the industry who has assaulted them a couple of years ago. And I've been in conversation with this friend and encouraging her to come forward. And she does not feel comfortable. She does not feel like she's going to be supported. And she's watching videos online of this whole thing going down with Russell Simmons and the whole thing going down with R. Kelly. And she's seen how the women are being shamed. She's seen how the women are being blacklisted from the community. She's seen how no one is believing them, that not even members of our own community are supporting the women. They're sitting up here saying that these women are lying and they're out for money. And I'm telling her, like, I support you. I will stand with you. And she's saying, no, it's not worth it. And I see how it's affecting her and her relationships and her self-image and her self-worth. And so I'm asking this question, and I would love to see you guys, please speak now. Here is an opportunity for you to have a voice right now. When Black women speak up on sexual assault, does our community turn a deaf ear? Yes or no? Let's see what you think. This is not just about me talking. This is also about you speaking and me listening. So I'd love to be quiet for a moment and read, or not really quiet because I'm going to read your comments, but I'd love to give you a voice through me right now to see what you guys think. So we definitely had Cliff Stewart who says he agrees. What else does everyone say? Denisha Butler says we should. Thank you. Denisha Butler is also a top fan. Denisha, please elaborate more. So I was going to get into Jenny Lamet. She had a story that came out, in The Root. It was written by Brianna Edwards on November 30th of 2017. Okay, Lena Horne's granddaughter, filmmaker Jenny Lamet, accuses Russell Simmons of sexual violation. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you right now. Jenny Lamet, the award-winning screenwriter behind Rachel Getting Married and The Mummy, is the latest woman to come forward with the resounding call of #MeToo, sharing what she says was her horrific encounter with music mogul Russell Simmons, who she says sexually assaulted her when she was in her early 20s. Lamet, the daughter of filmmaker Sidney Lamet and the granddaughter of singer and activist Lena Horne, took Simmons to task for his apparent hypocrisy and claiming, quote, "I have never committed any acts of aggression or violence in my life. I would never knowingly cause fear or harm to anyone." That, of course, was Simmons' statement in response to accusations from model Carrie Closen Kaligi, who earlier this month accused Simmons of sexually assaulting her when she was 17 years old. But according to Lamet, Simmons' statement could not be further from the truth. She knows, a truth she detailed in The Hollywood Reporter. Now, this is from her quotes taken from The Hollywood Reporter, okay? So listen up. She said, "I got into the car with you," talking about Simmons. "The driver began to drive. I assumed you knew where I lived because you had sent me 250 balloons. But I gave the driver my address on 19th Street and 2nd Avenue. You said to the driver, quote, 'No.' I didn't understand, so I said, 'Russell?' I said again to the driver, 19th Street. Again, you said to the driver, 'No.' Then the car doors locked. It was loud. The noise made me jump. I didn't recognize you at that moment. It was disorienting. It was disorienting. I say it twice now because you said no twice then. I couldn't open the doors. I couldn't open the windows. The car was moving. The driver did not stop. He did not take me to 19th Street. He took me to your apartment. I didn't try to kick the windows out. I didn't punch or kick. I didn't say, 'What are you doing?' My voice left me after the second no." Lamont continued, recalling how she ended up doing what she was told simply because she was not sure if the situation would turn violent. And I have heard this from a few different women, not about Russell, but just women that I have known over the years who have been assaulted in a like they weren't beaten as they were assaulted. And I had asked them the same questions that a lot of people ask, like, well, why didn't you just run away? Or why didn't you just push them out the way? And they said that a fear came over them once the man had made it clear that he was going to have sex with them, regardless of whether they wanted to or not, that a fear came into them where they just didn't want to be hurt. They didn't want to be killed. They didn't want to be violently attacked. So they decided to just, you know, try to get it over with, you know, so to speak, because they figured that was the only way they were going to get through the experience without being severely hurt, or killed even. So, so I guess they kind of go into survival mode, as some might call it. So again, back to her quote, she said, "You moved me into a bedroom. I said, wait, you said nothing. I made the trade in my mind. I thought, quote, just keep him calm and you'll get home." End quote. Maybe another person would have thought differently or not made that trade in their mind. It was dark, but not pitch dark. You closed the door. At that point, I simply did what I was told. There was penetration. At one point, you were only semi-erect and appeared frustrated, angry, question mark. I remember being afraid that you would deem that my fault and become violent. I did not know if you were angry, but I was afraid that you were. I desperately wanted to keep the situation from escalating. I wanted you to feel that I was not going to be difficult. I wanted to stay as contained as I could. You told me to turn over on my stomach. You said something about a part of my body. You did not ejaculate inside me. When it was over, I got my clothes and quickly went down in the elevator by myself. You didn't try to stop me. I went home in a taxi. I was grateful to be secure in my home. Now, she was saying that also she had built a life in the past 25 years and a reputation in the industry. And she said, I need no one to have this visualization of me. I will, like others, lose work because of this. And I want you guys to pay attention to this, what she's saying right here. She has a 25-year career and a reputation in the industry. She is a successful woman, so she really doesn't have much to gain from these accusations. She has a little bit more to lose. She says, I need no one to have this visualization of me. I will, like others, quote, lose work because of this. And she says, I've realized how privileged I am to be able to take that risk, because the privilege is in that, you know, first of all, she's related to Lena Horne, but also because she's getting money from the previous movies that she's been credited as writing, the successful, like The Mummy, for example. That was a huge hit. She says, I have children and I'm aware that every mistake, act of thoughtlessness, hypocrisy, or cruelty I've committed in my 50 years will be excavated and they'll see all of it. There is so much guilt and so much shame. There is an excruciating internal reckoning. As a woman of color, I cannot express how wrenching it is to write this about a successful man of color. Again, I want you guys to hear this. As a woman of color, I cannot express how wrenching it is to write this about a successful man of color. Again, shame about who I was years ago, choices made years ago. In this very moment, I feel a pang to protect your daughters, but I don't think you're inclined to protect mine. Now, this is from, again, Jenny Lamont, or Lamont, I'm not sure how you say her last name. This is Lena Horne's granddaughter. This was put out 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, when she accused Russell Simmons. And this is not one of the women who was on the CBS morning show. So there are a total of 16 women that have come forward. Now, for every predator, every victim of a predator that comes forward, we have to understand that there are usually many more who are not going to come forward. And let's be honest here with this. For every victim of a predator that comes forward, there are typically many more. I don't know statistically what the numbers are, but in general, there are many more that are not willing to come forward for whatever reason. Okay? So right now we have 16 women. Now, I want to get a little bit deeper into Russell Simmons. Now, let's give his side of the story. And again, thank you so much for joining me, Deena Jacobs, your Mindset Evolutionary, here at FlyNubianQueen.com, the network for melanated women just like you and me. We're here having a very thoughtful and deep discussion, a very open discussion about Russell Simmons. Is he guilty? I don't know, but his accusers are starting to tell their stories on major platforms such as the CBS Morning Show, and there is an untitled documentary that's going to be premiering at Sundance. And I just want us as a community to really think about how we deal with this and have some sensitivity about how we deal with these women as they're coming forward to speak their truth. Now, whether we believe them or not, we do want to create some space that feels safe for women to make the accusation and feel safe while we as a community and while the authorities look into it. That's what I'm kind of putting forward. I'm proposing that we do as a community is not be so quick to just say that they're lying or asking them like, well, why are you coming out now? Why you ain't say nothing then? Just give them the space to speak up and speak their truth. And then we as a community go back and, sort of, do the investigation, wait for the evidence to come forward, kind of reserve judgment, especially of the victims. Are we a little too quick to want to defend some of our men because, they are so successful? I mean, we can look at even the examples of the white guys who have been put up there. And I brought this up in the last discussion, and I want to point this out again here. A predator cannot exist and operate without compliance of the community that they're operating in. I want to say that again. Predators cannot exist and operate without some level of compliance from the community in which they're operating in. And that's where we as a community have to take responsibility. And if we're going to learn anything from the R. Kelly situation, right, where we were hearing rumors and we were seeing videotapes circulating around, and we even had the news reporting on R. Kelly marrying Aaliyah when she was like 15 in a very sketchy situation. We don't want to repeat that over and over again. If we want to protect our Black women, if we want to protect our Black girls, which we seem to be very concerned about their disappearance right now, right? What if we find out that some Black men are behind it, right? I hope that's not the case, but what if we find out that, some Black men are behind some of these Black girls disappearing? Are we going to suddenly act like, oh, it's not, these Black girls are lying, they didn't get abducted? Is that something that we're going to do as a community? Are we going to turn a deaf ear because maybe it's connected to someone that we cherish and love, such as a hip hop mogul who's now turned to a vegan and a Buddhist? I mean, it's amazing and great that he's had this spiritual transformation, but maybe part of his journey is to be held accountable for his past actions. And again, let me get a little bit deeper into this story, and let's get Russell's side of it, because I'm about fair and balance, and I'm about, listening to what he has to say, right? So Russell Simmons admits, quote, to being, this is his words, quote, to being a massively unconscious playboy, which is today appropriately titled womanizer. He said, quote, I have never been violent or forced myself on anyone. And he also claims to have taken some lie detector tests that prove his innocence. Now, I did some digging, and again, this was just within 24 hours span of time, so I'm not going to say I was like digging deep, but I did do some Googling to see if I could find any records of his lie detector tests, and I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything where the reports were put out anywhere for public examination. So that's something that I would say to Russell's people, that, if that's true, then, you need to get that out there. You need to, let the public examine it. Let the authorities examine it. I know there was something where they said that the investigators did not want to take the lie detector tests from him, but I think that may have something to do with that a lot of court systems are not using them anymore. Like, they're not being admitted as evidence any longer for people who are guilty or not guilty. I think that may be the reason why they're not accepting them. I think it might be something across the board that they're not doing anymore. But again, if there's any legal people, any lawyers, any people that are connected to the judicial system, and better than me, please speak up in the comments section. As a matter of fact, I want to hear from you guys on this subject, so let's see what the comments are. A top fan, Tonya D. Adams, says, I remember when Halle Berry spoke for being abused by a celebrity, and also Jada Pinkett, but they would not blame the actor. You know why? You know why? Because look what happens. Remember when Holly Berry said that David Justice punched her in the ear or in her something, and she was like messed up. I don't know if it was David Justice or if it was Wesley Snipes. I can't remember. But people just immediately started calling her crazy. Okay. And, you know, maybe Holly is dealing with some mental health issues, but that does not at all excuse the fact that someone may have assaulted her, allegedly, right? It doesn't excuse the fact. Just because somebody's quote unquote crazy, and again, this is a sexist thing that's been used on women. As soon as you speak up about some things that are going on, and it might not even be as severe as someone assaulting you. It just could be like someone touched your leg, or, you know, they're doing something inappropriate or making some inappropriate jokes or comments about you. Oh, she's crazy. She's hysterical. She's crazy. That's a crazy bitch. Right? I mean, it's happened to most of us as women, period, not just Black women, but in particular, you know that we get stereotyped if we speak up about anything. We're angry, right? How many times have we been accused of being angry when we're just simply pointing something out, making an observation, right? So these are things that I'm asking us to consider as we have, unfortunately, more men are being accused of sexual assault and rape. And I'm not talking about, oh, he touched my thigh. These women are coming out and saying that Russell raped them. Like, they said no. Some of them didn't even have time to say no before he was on top of them, according to one of the women. And I just think that we need to hear them out, because we know that the hip hop industry, especially back in the 80s, was a Wild West game. Okay. And we also know that the music industry in general has been known for a certain level of misogyny. So how far-fetched is it really to think that some things like this could have happened? I mean, if we're really honest with ourselves, how far-fetched is it to think that some of these things could have happened with some of these people, some of these women? There is a sense of entitlement, and I'm going to share, you know what, let's get back into Russell. Okay, so the lifelong cost of, oh, no, we're not going to go to that yet. That's going to be the ending of the video if you guys hang out with me. Again, hit the like, subscribe, share, thumbs up button. This is a really deep topic, and I'm glad to have you guys here with me to discuss it, because I think our community, we need to discuss these things openly, and we need to, if we care about Black women the way that we say we do, if we say that we care about Black women and girls in the way that we say we do, shouldn't we listen with an open heart, an open ear, and an open mind when they come forward to speak out against an alleged predator? Don't we owe our sisters, our daughters, our mothers, our aunts, our cousins, and our best friends that? Don't we owe them a space to speak out against those who have hurt them? Even if that person they're accusing is someone that we love and adore? I'm asking you, the audience, are we turning a deaf ear when Black women speak up on sexual assault? And do we owe that to our women, our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our girls, to at least give them the space to speak as all the facts are coming to light, without shaming them or calling them tools of white supremacy? So in the comments here, I'll say, Aaliyah Morrison, is this still live? Yes, it is, my darling. It's still live. Well, do you have something to say? Please, by all means, I would love to hear your comments. And Seamanoke Allen says she can't see. Oh, well, can you guys see me now? If you can, please put a 1, a thumbs up, or something to let me know that you can see me. Please, that's important, because this is a really deep topic, and I want to make sure that you guys can see me. So let's see. On Vlad TV, there's a video where Russell Simmons says, I stopped getting high at 30. So just to give you a little context of who Russell was before he became the spiritual yoga vegan that he is today. Simmons admits that from age 15 to 30, he was a drug user / abuser. He did angel dust, which is PCP. Phencyclidine is an illegal psychedelic drug that induces hallucinations and feelings of detachment from self and surroundings. Okay, this was developed in 1950s as a surgical anesthetic, but it was abandoned because it caused agitation, mania, irrational, bizarre thinking, violent, aggressive actions, psychosis, etc. And this comes from Wikipedia. So again, he admitted from the age of 15 to 30, he was doing angel dust PCP. Okay, he was engaging in that. And it is known to cause agitation, mania, irrational, bizarre thinking, violent, aggressive actions, and psychosis. Now, again, this is not to say he's guilty, but we're just trying to understand where he was, who he was, and what type of behaviors he was engaging in before he became this enlightened being. Okay, now you understand these women are accusing him from like 20 to 30 years ago. So he's about 60 something years old now. So that's right around this time, right? So he freebased heroin. Again, he admits this in a video on Vlad TV. I stopped getting high at 30. Okay. Again, this is not saying he's guilty. This is just giving you a little insight into who he was at that time. Also, he was smoking a lot of weed, he said. Let's see. King's College in London did a study that indicates that someone who uses marijuana every day is 3 times more likely to develop a psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia, bipolar, hallucinations, and delusions. And this is from an Esquire article on smoking weed increases your chances of developing psychosis, which was published online on March 20th of 2019. It was fairly recent. So I'm bringing all that up just to let you guys know that there's a possibility that if Russell was engaging in drug behavior, drug-induced behavior, engaging in drug use at a high level back then, and it was including PCP, heroin, and marijuana, this potent mix, and not saying he was doing it all at once, but in your chemical bloodstream, right, can cause you to be out of your mind. And then we go back to his quote where he's saying that he admits to being a massively, quote, unconscious. Now, we know what the word unconscious means, right? So unconscious means that when a person suddenly becomes unable to respond to stimuli and appears to be asleep, right? That's from Google. The part of the mind which is inaccessible to the conscious mind, but which affects behaviors and emotions. That's from Google. In Freudian psychology, the unconscious mind is the repository for thoughts, feelings, memories of which a person is not, quote unquote, consciously aware, right? That's from goodtherapy.org, right? So if you take those 3 definitions into account, and he's saying, I admit to being a massively unconscious, which I don't know, we can connect. I don't know, maybe it's a stretch, but again, this is just me kind of trying to understand from my own point of view. And again, I'm admitting this is my own point of view, but I'm sharing it with you, and hopefully I would love for you guys to make more comments. I wanted it to be more of a conversation. Hey, Jade, I'm so glad you're here. Jade Arundel, Lioness Crown, and her unapologetically black queen here at Fly Nubian Queen is in the building. Hey, lady. So I'm glad that Jade is here. So I'm just trying to draw some parallels to see where it could be possible that he's not even remembering things the same way that some of these women are remembering them, right? And so how do we deal with that? Now he's evolved as a person, but he admits to being a massively unconscious playboy, which today is appropriately titled a womanizer. And then I was like, you know what? What is a womanizer? Let me, I got to get into that, because I want to make sure I'm understanding that when someone puts out a statement, they're choosing their words very, very carefully, probably with a publicist. It's not choosing these words, right? So a womanizer is a man who engages in numerous casual sexual affairs with women, right? That's according to Google. So he's admitting to engaging in numerous casual sexual encounters with women, and also admitting to being massively unconscious while doing these things. So to me, that kind of says that maybe there was some gray area in how he was approaching these encounters. Plus, he admits that he was a heavy drug user back then. Now, again, I'm not saying he's guilty. What I'm saying is that we as a community owe it to our women and our girls to give space to their accusations and not be so quick to just jump up and say, they're tools for white supremacy. They may very well be, but we do a disservice not only to them, but to ourselves and our greater community by not at least giving them space to speak their truth, hear what they're saying, support them in getting the help that they need. Because if they're lying, they need help too. If they're telling a lie, they need some assistance. They need some care, because something's off if you're lying about something like that. And also, if they're telling the truth, they're going to need some help, some support, and some care. And so we see publicly that these young ladies that were dealing with R. Kelly, one minute they were like, oh, we all for R. Kelly and we love being here. And next minute they're breaking down, they're fighting each other, they're screaming, they're crying on a live stream. We're seeing the effects of these young women and the mind control and what can happen to them when they don't have support out in the community or from their parents. And now their predator is gone and they don't know what to do. Are we as a community supporting them? Are we providing space for these women to evolve and come forward? Because when someone is assaulted, it's not something you just get up and be like, okay, I'm in my right mind and I'm just going to go to the police and report it. There's so many emotions and different things that a person is going through, especially someone's been sexually assaulted. There's guilt, there's shame, there's fear. They don't know if the person might attack them again, especially if it's a very powerful person. I mean, Kevin Spacey's accusers keep coming up dead. So I don't think it's fair for us to say, hey, why didn't this person say something 20 years ago? Think that the climate was completely different in Hollywood and the entertainment industry 20 to 30 years ago. Why did you go up to his room? Well, one of the women worked for him. She wasn't expecting that he was going to assault her. And when you go on a first date with a man, you're not expecting to be assaulted either. I know most of us aren't. So I want to get back into this. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining me here, Deena Jacobs at FlyNubianQueen.com, the network for melanated women. And again, I would love to hear your take on this. If you guys have different opinions, different views, different things you want to point out, you do not have to agree with me by any means. This is an open conversation. And I'm glad that this platform is available for me and you, for us to get together, and for other queens have different opinions than I have, but this is a place that you can feel safe. We as women, as Black women, can come and we can talk these things out and talk these things through. I personally know a lot of women who have been abused, assaulted, some when they were children, some when they were adults, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. And it is not something to be taken lightly. It is not something that's easy for them to get up and tell somebody about. Sometimes when they try to tell somebody, like one of the women said she was trying to tell somebody and everybody was like, your career is going to be ruined. You shouldn't do it. No one's going to believe you. So imagine you're trying to speak up. You're trying to get your voice together. You're speaking to someone who you trust and they're like, no, don't say nothing. Girl, be quiet. They're going to mess up your career. So the person you're confiding in is pushing you back down. And how often does that happen to us as Black women outside of even this type of a context? Are we as a community going to stand up for the women in our space, in our community, who are speaking out against predators in our community? Or are we going to simply continue to do what has always been done and ignore or shame or try to disprove or drag Black women down when they're speaking up against abuse? We say we're the most disrespected and unprotected women. Okay, if I don't subscribe to that thinking for myself and how I operate in life, but if that's what we're going to assume, then why are we continuing to do that to each other when we have women being brave enough to come forward and speak about things that they've been holding inside and dealing with, and some very unsuccessfully dealing with? Some are able to still go on and have good careers and family and children, and others are completely torn down because of it, because they can't deal with what has happened to them. So again, I put the question forward: when Black women speak up on sexual assault, does the Black community turn a deaf ear? Are we supporting Black women who are speaking up and Black girls who are speaking up against their abusers, even when they're Black? So this is one of the things I wanted to get in as we start to wrap up. There is an article called "The Lifelong Consequences of Rape. The long-term psychological and physical effects of the experiences are devastating, and they're likely exacerbated by the shame our culture insists on perpetuating." This is by STARRE VARTAN. It was originally written on June 14th of 2017, and it was updated on June 14th of 2017, originally written in December of 2014. So again, these links are in your information section if you want to check them out. For reasons that aren't entirely clear to researchers, rape is different from other forms of physical violence and trauma. Even though people may suffer from PTSD following a variety of terrible events, including combat exposure, assault, or a life-threatening accident, rape victims are more likely to experience long-lasting mental and physical problems. And here, long-term can mean a lifetime of torment. A study earlier this year by a team of German researchers compares 27 rape survivors from World War II with women who had experienced other types of trauma during World War II. Among the elderly sample, which was found via extensive media outreach, the authors wrote, "Women exposed to conflict-related sexual violence reported greater severity of PTSD-related avoidance and hyperarousal symptoms." Now, avoidance may mean avoidance of sex or avoidance of, relationship. And hyperarousal. Now, we know arousal means to be aroused. We're talking about sex as far as I can see from this article. Hyper means like elevated levels. Hyperarousal symptoms, as well as anxiety, compared with female long-term survivors from non-sexual World War II trauma. So basically what they're saying, women exposed to conflict-related sexual violence reported greater severity of PTSD, anxiety, avoidance, hyperarousal symptoms compared with females who survived non-sexual trauma. Social acknowledgement, and this is from this article, social acknowledgement is one of the most important healing effects. So I'm pointing this out to us in the Black community, that social acknowledgement is one of the most important healing effects. Us as a community acknowledging these women and what they're speaking, their truth in that moment of them coming forward to say someone assaulted them, someone raped them, someone violated them in some kind of way, our acknowledgement as a community is imperative to their healing. And if we say we love Black women and we support Black women and we want to uplift Black women, when Black women and Black girls are coming forward and accusing people in numbers, not just one, not just two, but we should give space to them as well, in my opinion. Because it takes so much for that first girl to come forward, and then the second one. And then as you notice, more and more start to get the courage, right? Social acknowledgement is one of the most important healing effects. A society has to acknowledge that this suffering happened and has to give the people some kind of symbol of that. Again, this is from our article called The Lifelong Consequences of Rape by STARRE, S-T-A-R-R-E, Vartan, V-A-R-T-A-N. Look it up on the internet if you want to check my sources. I also put the link in the information section. What they're saying is that social acknowledgement is one of the most important healing effects. A society has to acknowledge that this suffering happened. We as a community, in my opinion, have to acknowledge that something traumatic has happened to these women. Now, whether Russell sees it one way because he was a quote-unquote playboy and a quote-unquote womanizer, an unconscious playboy and an unconscious womanizer, that's still not excusable. Now, is it illegal? That's something for the courts to decide. But we do have to acknowledge, we know that hip hop is very misogynistic. We know that there's a rape undertone in a lot of hip hop music. Let's be honest with ourselves as a community, and especially as women. I'm part of the generation from the 90s that defended hip hop, and look at the fallout from it. I can take that responsibility now and say, no more. I'm not going to support that anymore. I'm not going to support that type of music. I'm not going to support that type of imagery of a Black woman, because that doesn't reflect who I am at this stage in life. I don't think it helps us as a community to still be trying to defend some of these things when we haven't even heard all the facts. And we have women coming forward and saying these things happened. And they were traumatized. And they're Black women. They're part of our community. Why are we so quick to simply say they're tools of white supremacy? How does that help us as Black women strengthen our collective voices when we're speaking about anything? Especially when we're speaking about something as traumatic as rape. And we understand that rape happened in our communities from the first day our people got here. So how are we going to be expected to be heard and acknowledged when we're trying to speak up about reparations and the traumas and the rapes that happened in our community, when our women are speaking up in the community and we're not even willing to open space and create safe space for them to speak up about those that are abusing them today, right now, or in the recent past? When girls who are being currently abused, or women who are currently being abused, or recently, like within the past few months or year, within the statute of limitations, are watching online and listening online as we tear down women who are coming forward after 30, 20, 30, 10 years of holding this stuff inside, and they can't take it anymore, and they come forward and they're brave, and we start finding that, oh, why are they trying to take down the Black man, and we're not even giving them the space to tell their story, to hear them out. What do you think that says to the little Black girl who's being abused right now by her stepfather, or who is being assaulted by her coach, or by the little boy down the street, or about some stranger who has, you know, grabbed her and she wants to get away. What do you think that tells her subconsciously? She doesn't matter. She doesn't have a voice. She's not worth it. Maybe she even deserves it. I think we as Black women deserve better than that. Matter of fact, I know that we as Black women deserve to be heard. We deserve to have a safe space in our community, first and foremost, to speak out against the atrocities that happen to us historically, recent, the far past, the recent past, and whether the aggressor be white, Black, Hispanic, other, male, female, we deserve to be heard. We deserve to have that space. And I will put that out to the community to have these conversations within your groups. Are we listening? Are we turning a deaf ear to Black women when they're speaking up about sexual assault? And if we find that the answer is yes, how can we move forward to create space and behavior? One of the first things I would offer is to say that let's quiet some of the noise and listen. Let's listen to what these women have to say. Let's listen to what the accused has to say, because I'm open to listening to what Russell has to say. And right now, some of the things that Russell is saying, I don't hear. Now, he says, I have never been violent or forced myself on anyone, but he also admits to being a massively unconscious playboy, which is today appropriately titled a womanizer. So he admits that he was running through women, basically. I mean, that's a slang terminology, but he was running through women. So maybe in his drug-induced mind state, he just wanted to cut to the chase and get to the part that he wanted, which was the sex. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I'm saying is that these women feel violated, and we owe it to them to hear them out. And we also owe it to us collectively as women, even those of us who have never been sexually assaulted in that way. We want that space to be open. God forbid anything crazy like that happens to us. You want that space to be there. Trust and believe, ladies and members of the community. You want that space to be there. So I think I'm going to start to wind this down. Let me see if there's anything else to bring to this. I don't think so, but I would. Oh, there was an article that a lady named Ebby LeBlanc wrote on January 5th of 2019 in relation to the R. Kelly thing that was going on. It says, "Dear Black community, stop enabling sexual predators." And she was saying there is an alarmingly higher rate of sexual abuse of Black women. According to a study conducted by the Black Women's Blueprint, 60% of Black girls experienced sexual abuse at the hands of Black men before reaching age 18. So again, people get very triggered when it's focused in on Black men. And I can understand why. I mean, if we look back in history, the biggest abusers, sexual abusers and predators and rapists were white men who owned the plantations, right? They're the guys who worked there, the family members. I mean, it was a free-for-all, basically, unfortunately, thinking back to that time, according to some of the historical records. And also, if you look at some of the lineages and the bloodlines, you can see that there was a lot of offspring that were produced from some of these non-consensual unions, right? So obviously that is there, and it doesn't feel good to think about that, and it's angering in a lot of ways, right? So, but we have to be honest when we look at some of these statistics and these numbers and admitting that sometimes the predators are Black men. Does it mean that all Black men are bad? Absolutely not. I know a lot of great Black men. I was raised by a man who is not my biological father, and he never touched me. Not in that way. So there are great Black men out here who are not interested in assaulting you. They're good guys and they have boundaries. They understand boundaries. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. But there are great guys out here, great Black men. My brother's one of them. My dad was one of them when he was alive. So by no means am I trying to condemn all Black men. So please don't try that. What I'm saying here is that we have to acknowledge that there seems to be a higher rate of Black girls experiencing sexual abuse, and because of proximity, it seems to be at the hands of men within their proximity who tend to be Black men. That's something we need to deal with. Does it mean that we need to go on form a lynch mob? No. But what it means is that if we don't address it and we just keep looking at being like, don't talk about that, white supremacy, don't talk about that, white supremacy, we're enabling those predators to keep going. They need help too. The predators themselves need help. Not everybody's going to evolve and become a Buddhist and a vegan and shift their and change their whole spiritual life like a Russell Simmons. Not everybody's going to become enlightened. Some people are going to have to face justice. But they can't be brought to justice if we as a community don't want to acknowledge it. Because we don't want to listen to the girls. We want to call them fast. We want to call them liars. This has to end. We have to make a shift. We have to change. Because if we don't honor them, we're not honoring and valuing ourselves as individuals. We're not honoring and valuing our community. We're not revering Black women the way that we say we truly do in our community if we're not going to protect them, if we're not going to create safe spaces for them to speak out about the atrocities that are happening right here in our own communities. That goes for the music. That goes for some of the content that's being put out. And yes, I admit a lot of that is not run and controlled by us, but some of it was. And if we look at Russell Simmons' music, the music and stuff that he was putting out and some of the people he was supporting and in the industry that he was in, it was extremely misogynistic. Women were not valued on the level that we say we call ourselves queens. Well, I mean, let's go back and listen to some of that music. Not everything was Poor Righteous Teachers or Queen Latifah, UNITY, or I need love. Not everything was LL Cool J talking about he need love. And as it progressed into the latter 90s, it got real disrespectful. So I think some of this is possibly the fact that some of us realize that we have been complicit in supporting predatory behavior towards us. But as long as we weren't the victims, we were okay with it. I don't know. These are just things I'm throwing out for us to consider. Are you okay with a woman right next to you being assaulted? As long as it's not you? Just things to consider. Because if one woman is not safe in a community, then ultimately none of us are safe in a community. So these are just things I want you to consider, my brilliantly beautiful, gifted beings. I know it's a heavy topic, but it's out there and it's being discussed. And so anytime something like this is being discussed, mental health and spiritual health comes into play. Also, the health of the community. And I just want us to think about these things. Oh, I said I was going to share a story. This is the last thing, and then I'm going to go. So I've been out in Hollywood for a while. When I first got here, I was all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I had the pleasure of running into a couple of C-list, D-list celebrities, male celebrities. And of course, it's exciting. I met one of them in the mall, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just met this celebrity. I used to watch him on TV. He's awesome. And he wanted to take me out, and he invited me out to this event. And so I drove over to his place, and he had a few people there, a little entourage or whatever. And so I felt comfortable to go in because there were people there. So I'm like, nothing's gonna happen. So I went in, and he was showing me the house and everything. And of course, we end up in the bedroom, and he was like trying to, get me to do something. Now, I'm the type of woman that I know how to say no and get out of situations without not saying that other women don't know how to say no, but I do think that sometimes some of us are a little more like, I don't know, we're able to get out of those situations, right? So, he was trying to, do some stuff, and I just was kind of like, oh, you know what? I'm having my cycle right now, and like, oh, we're going to the event, right? Let's go to the event first and then come back, and I knew once we came back, I wasn't going back up in there. So I was able to get out of it. I went to the event, had a good time, met another celebrity there, Celebrity B. And he saw me with Celebrity A, and he was like, you with him? And I was like, yeah. He was like, cool. Then he came back and gave me his number. And so I kind of felt like, well, that was odd because I'm clearly here with this guy. And then he gave me his number, and I was like, this is interesting. I'll give you my take on why I think that happened in a minute. As I'm sure you guys are smart, you can probably guess. So anyway, I ended up leaving, and then he was like, oh, why don't you come in? Why don't you come in? I was like, oh, no, I'm tired. I'm just going to get in my car and go home, whatever. So I went home, right? And then I was like, okay, no big deal. We stayed in touch a little bit over the next couple of weeks. And I was like, why don't we go out? He kept trying to invite me back to his house. And I was like, oh, let's go out. Let's have a bite to eat. And, I want to get to know you and see who you are as a person. And we're from the same hometown and everything. So I thought like, we had a little bit of some connection of some things in common. So at one point he calls me. It was not super late, but maybe around 9 o'clock at night. He was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm in the house doing blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, why don't you come over? Whatever. I said, well, you know what? I would love to meet up with you. Why don't we go out to a bar and get a drink? Ain't nobody trying to go out and get no drink. Either you going or you not. What's good with it? You know what I'm saying? Why you trying to act all like whatever? Either we going or we not. And this is over the phone, guys. This was over the phone. And I was like, excuse me? I don't owe you anything. And he was like, well, I don't know why you trying to act like you ain't nobody trying to get to know you all like that. Either you trying to be down to, or not. What's up with it? I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be doing anything like that. That's especially under like, who are you to talk to me like that? So anyway, the phone call ended. And we didn't talk again after that. But I bumped into him from time to time. And there was a point in time where he would see me and he would try to like ignore me or like throw shade at me or like, kind of like act like it was just the weirdest experience. Like because I didn't give him my body, which I barely knew the guy, we went out one time, talked on the phone like a couple of times briefly. He had this sense of entitlement. That because he was, and believe me, a D-list celebrity is being very generous, okay? That I was obligated to give myself to him. And that I had no right to want to get to know him before that happened or to vet him in any normal kind of way that a woman would vet a man before she was intimate with him. So I can see how, if I wasn't the type of woman that I am, where I kind of can, I gauge situations and the level of danger that might be there. Like I said, when I met him at his place and he was like, oh, you want to see my place or whatever. I was like, I don't know. He's like, I got some friends and stuff over, whatever. And when he opened the door and I looked in, there was like a mixed group of people there. And it seemed like, it didn't seem seedy at all. The vibe I got was that, there were people hanging out and it was a cool vibe. If I would have went up to the door and he said, I got people in there, and I looked in and I didn't see nobody, or I looked in and I saw some people that looked like the vibe wasn't right, I wouldn't have went in. Again, that's just me. But when I did go to the bedroom and he's, you know, he was showing me the house. Oh, this is this room, and here's my kids' room, and here's this room, and here's the game room, and oh, and here's my bedroom, and you know, and I looked and I was like, oh, this is nice. He's like, oh, let me show you these pictures, and you know, he's showing me some pictures of his family and things like that. You know, it was all very innocent at that moment, right? But of course, he did start trying to get handsy with me and everything like that. And I was able to be like, oh, no, no, you know what? No, let's just go to the party, you know, let's just get out of here, you know, and finagle my way and finesse my way out of it. And then I knew never to go back to his place again. But not every woman is as smart, I would say. Not that they're stupid, but you know, there's different levels of street smart. Some girls are very innocent. Some women are so wide-eyed and bushy-tailed that they're just excited to be in the presence of someone they admire. You know, a lot of these women, when they were assaulted, they were young. They were like late teens, early 20s. Think about all the dumb stuff that you did when you were in your late teens and early 20s. By the time I met up with this celebrity, I was already out of my 20s. You know what I'm saying? So I had more street smarts to be, you know, understanding. Celebrity B, this is how women can get passed around, because imagine I slept with celebrity A. The other celebrity saw me with the celebrity and thought, oh, new fresh meat. You new out here? Yeah, you with him? Okay, cool. Here's my number. Now he trying his hand. He wants to go out. We go out. I knew not to go to his house because I already had the one experience. We go out. We had, you know, we had a little date, went out, had some breakfast. Another time he invited me to some basketball game, and I didn't want to go because, you know, I'm not a big, you know, like it was like him and his buddies playing basketball. It wasn't like no NBA game. And then another time he was like, he kept trying to get me to come back to his place. And I was like, you know what? Let's go out. Let's go see a movie, or, you know, let's go have a drink. Let's do something like that. And then he was like, why you acting so weird? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, ain't nobody trying to, you know, F you. Ain't nobody trying to F you. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he was like, ain't nobody trying to F you. Like, I was just asking if you want to come over and chill. You know what I'm saying? I got a nice house. It's comfortable. Why you don't want to come over here? I said, well, if you ain't trying to F me, then what does it matter? Why can't we go out? Man, you acting all stuck up and stuff. Da, 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 da. So again, I could go into, you know, I had a couple more stories after that of celebrity C and celebrity D. After that, that was enough on the celebrities. And let me help you understand that these were not A-list celebrities. These were not even B-list celebrities. These weren't even C-list celebrities. These were like D-list or below celebrities. Okay, people who are not really working anymore, maybe had a couple of hit films or something back in the day. Maybe here and there they pop up on a cameo, but they ain't nobody you gonna be like, oh my God, you know, like you throwing it at them. But the sense of entitlement is what I'm talking about, ladies. The sense of entitlement with these men because they had a little fame, a little notoriety. I was expected by them to just have my legs open, just for the train of celebrity men to come through. That's what it felt like to me. Like they were expecting that I was going to be sexually available to them and ready to just come into their presence, into their home, and be like available. And when I put up the thing like, no, you know, let's get to know each other. Let's see if there's something here. That was like unacceptable. I got cussed out more than one time by these guys because I didn't want to come to their home, because I didn't want to get physical with them, because I didn't want to kiss them if we were out, you know, and we were on a date. They were getting demanding, and I can see how very easily that could turn crazy super quick if you're in a situation where you're putting yourself like you're alone with them, or maybe you're only willing to go so far. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you just want to have a kiss or a cuddle or something, and they're not getting it. I could see how that could be a rape. I could see how somebody could get assaulted or somebody could get coerced into a sexual situation. Now, luckily, that's not my story, but I'm just giving you guys a little bit of insight into what it's like in this industry. And so with that, I'm going to end it right there. And I'm going to say thank you guys for joining me. Oh, you know what? There's a couple of Let's see. Jay said he passed 9 hours of lie detector test. Jay, I was looking. Have you found those tests, the test results or the papers? Because I was trying to research and I couldn't find them anywhere. So that was the thing that was stopping me from really like being able to say, okay, well, he passed these lie detector tests. We need to see the questions and the answers, and we need to see the heart rate tape in order to be able to 100% believe that, because people can put out a statement and say that they done did anything, but if we don't have the proof of the lie detector test, then has he published those? That's the question that I have. Jason Martirano says, how does the animal kingdom work? You know what? I don't know, bruh. You want to enlighten us here? Jason Martirano says, that's not right. I'm not sure what he's referring to. Nathan Bilal Lang says, greetings, my sister. Thank you for doing and sharing this. I can relate to this, and it resonates with me because I experienced these psychosis from the use of drugs. There were so many levels of experience, and I'm clean and sober and serene today. You are a godsend to us all. Thank you. Much of what you shared is true and correct and very helpful too. Thank you, and may you be blessed for your strength to speak up. Thank you very much. Nathan Bilal Lang. Thank you. Thank you, brother. We have to stand united as a community, men and women together. So, Nathan, you gave me the strength. You give me the platform. You have lifted me up to feel comfortable and confident in what the message that I'm giving, because I'm not going to lie, I was nervous about speaking about this because I see how people feel. But I believe that there is room in our community for more than one opinion and more than one way of doing things. I'm not necessarily always right. Others are not necessarily always right. But as a community, we have to keep the dialogue open. And so, Brother Nathan Bilal Lang, I say thank you. Thank you for sharing a part of your story. And thank you for letting me know that this is touching you, and hopefully it's touching others. And so with that, I'm going to say thanks to everyone at FlyNubianQueen.com for allowing me, Deena Jacobs, your Mindset Evolutionary, to be here every week, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, to discuss my beautiful, brilliant, gifted beings, Black women, leading them and guiding them to freedom from negative conditioning. So hopefully you guys will join me again here on Sunday. And who knows, I might be back before then to talk about some other hot topics in relation to our spiritual and mental well-being. Thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night. Bye-bye.